Hello everybody and welcome to the Road to Tsongas, our MIAA boys and girls basketball bracket release show. My name is Gage Nutter with Mass Live here in Franklin at the Franklin TV studios. We have the brackets. They are out. They've been released within the last hour. All 5 divisions in boys MIAA basketball and girls basketball. That's 10 divisions. 10 state champions will be crowned within the next month. We have some three-peats. Will Malden Catholic win 4 in a row in Division II for the boys? Will we have new champions? Will there be programs that will win their first ever state titles? We will find out. We will have 10 champions here in the next month. I'm going to be breaking it all down here with my man Pete Royce, just as we did not too long ago this morning for boys and girls hockey. That went pretty well. A lot of great teams, some great people that we talked to, but how are we feeling about boys and girls basketball, Pete?
It's tremendous. I'm really excited, Gage. You know, you look at the number of teams participating, it's something like 400 teams participating. Yep. You add about 12 to 14 players per team. It's nearly 6,000 players will be participating in this tournament. You have 4 undefeated teams coming in. You have, on the boys' side, you have Norwell at 20-0, Division III team. Pioneer Valley out in the western part of the state, 20-0. And on the girls' side, 2 Western Mass teams are also undefeated, Lennox at 20-0 and Renaissance at 20-0. Will any of those bubbles burst? We will see, and we'll try to break it down in the next 45 minutes.
Will there be bubbles that burst, and who will be bursting those bubbles if they are burst? Will it be those teams in the teens that lock down those seeds in the teens, maybe the mid-teens, maybe in the 20s? What team will rise to the top that maybe we didn't anticipate? It's all going to be very exciting, and we're going to break it all down here. Not just with reporters from across the state, not just me and Pete. We're going to be talking to players, student athletes from across the Commonwealth as well. Before we get into all the fun, though, Pete, I want to throw it to Executive Director of the MIAA, Bob Baldwin, for a brief message before we get going.
Welcome to our winter bracket release show, where we get together with our friends at Franklin TV and Mass Live and all of our media, athletic directors, coaches, student athletes, and building principals to make this work. It's ultimately the road to the Tsongas Center and ultimately the road to the Garden for the finals. But all those experiences and games in between are so exciting. So sit back and relax and enjoy our 2nd annual bracket release show.
Thank you once again to Dr. Bob Baldwin for that message, and we're going to jump right into it, Pete. I want, if we can, do we have St. Mary's from Lynn boys basketball in the building, one of the top teams in Division I? Is St. Mary boys basketball here? Or Division III, St. Mary's? Going once, going twice.
I know they did have a scrimmage or something today that they had to get ready for. Hopefully the bus hasn't left yet.
Yes, well, so I anticipate... Do we have anybody? No. All right, well, maybe they had to get on the bus. I mean, they got things going on. They're trying to get ready to win a state championship here. But what about the St. Mary girls? Do we have the St. Mary girls? It's a big day for St. Mary's. Do we have them here in the building?
She's absolutely yeah, right here.
Welcome to the show. We're talking about St. Mary's of Lynn. Seems like we're outside. We're enjoying the nice cold weather here.
Get back in.
Can you guys hear us all right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, welcome to the show. St. Mary's in the Final Four last year, you guys were as a program, and you guys are back again in the state tournament. Not to really anybody's surprise. I know you guys hold yourself to a high standard, and that's why you guys are the #1 seed, in case you didn't hear, in Division III for the girls basketball state tournament. Ladies, if you could just introduce yourself, I guess kind of going down the line here. Who do we have?
I'm Bella Omi, sophomore.
I'm Jillian Roberts. I'm a junior.
I'm Reese Matella, senior.
Okay. Do we have some boys basketball players in the back too? Is this full St. Mary's?
Yeah.
We got the whole crew here. It's quite a day for St. Mary's. I know you gentlemen got to get going to a scrimmage here pretty soon, but who do we have here from the boys?
Rowan Merriman, sophomore.
Luke Phelan, senior.
All right. So again, I know you boys got to get going. So who are we scrimmaging today, by the way?
Boston Latin.
Boston Latin. Okay, so you're getting work in, you get your seed, and then you're still getting to work, getting a scrimmage in. So, gentlemen, I just want to ask you a couple questions before you got to get on the bus and get rolling. St. Mary's Lynn, boys basketball, just same as girls basketball. High level of pedigree when it comes to the basketball program. I know for you two, probably been a part of the program for the last few years. But for either one of you, what has made this year's team different? What is it about this year's group that has made you guys as good as you are, the St. Mary's boys?
You know what? Getting knocked out early last year in the playoffs has really made us ready to work. And so this year we've been working as hard as we can in practice every single day, and it's been working out for us.
All right, and then one more question for the boys, and then we'll let you get on the bus and get moving to Boston Latin. I was just looking at your guys' schedule. You won 6 games by single digits. You've won the rest by double digits. But having those wins, those single-digit wins, when it comes to those wins, that's execution in the fourth quarter. That's staying calm down the stretch when there's 3 minutes left and it's a 1 or 2 possession game. How do you feel like you guys have overcome adversity during the regular season? When it comes to those close games, how important do you feel like that experience is going to be for you guys as you get deeper and deeper into the state postseason, having those close and single-digit wins under your belt?
Those the close games, we really trust each other when we're on the court, and I think that we all trust each other with the ball, and we know that our guy next to us is going to make the big shot. Awesome, gentlemen. Well, again, get on that bus. I see you guys. You got your zip-ups. You got your Nike zip-ups. You're ready to put in some work here on the weekend. I'm going to let you guys go. Best of luck to the St. Mary boys going forward in the state tournament. Thanks so much for joining us, boys. Thank you.
All right, so now the girls, now the St. Mary girls. I mean, again, big day for St. Mary's. If we're going to show the boys love, you got to show the girls love as we should, as being the #1 seed in Division III. So I apologize, ladies, if you introduced yourself earlier. Could you introduce yourself one more time for the audience, each of you?
Yeah. Bella Umi, sophomore.
Jillian Roberts, I'm a junior.
Reese Matella, I'm a senior.
Okay, ladies, so just looking at it last year, I mean, to look a little bit retrospective as we look into this year, made it to the Final Four last year, had that experience, and now you're back here as the top seed in Division III and ready to make another run. Tell me about this year, and same sort of question, what is making this year's team a little bit different from last year's team? What makes you guys unique in comparison to last year's team, or even the team the year before that, do you think?
So our schedule definitely has stepped it up. We're playing way better teams. We're playing Medfield, which isn't in our conference, but it's a really good team. We did end up losing that game. We played Bishop Fien twice. I just think our competitiveness has really stepped up, and we have a lot of young players, and just having them in a different role this year is really important, and making sure that they feel safe and comfortable. It's been a journey, and we just got to keep pushing because the journey's not over.
Right.
I think to just go off a little what she said, I think our connection on and off the court definitely helps us in close games. It helps us stick together and pull through.
Yeah, we've really focused on our defense this year.
God, I think we're losing you a little bit, ladies.
Great success, some big games, so that's a big part of our team.
Got it. I think we're losing you a little bit there, ladies, but thank you so much for the time that you've taken. Obviously, a big day for St. Mary's, the girls locking down the 1 seed in Division III like you guys did, and that's because of your body of work this season and the work you've put in multiple times a week to be able to earn that seed. And shout out to the boys as well. I shouted them out as they go to Boston Latin for their scrimmage. Shout out to you ladies, and best of luck this postseason. Unfortunately, having some issues with the St. Mary girls, but thank you so much to the St. Mary girls for joining us on the broadcast. Big day for St. Mary's.
Isn't it amazing? 2 teams, boys and girls, both #1 in their respect. But it happened again today in Division II. Medfield, boys and girls, #1. Talk about a tradition of sports. And that gal there from St. Mary's mentioned.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That gal mentioned they played Medfield, so that was stepping up. So they're really primed. But it's unusual to have so much powerful rankings for the same school in boys and girls. And good luck to them all.
Absolutely. So that was a little bit of D3 talk, but we're going to take a little step back here if we can. I know we're excited. We're just going to take a step back here. We're going to look at Division 5 girls here. As you can see, we got plenty of brackets here printed out, still warm off the printer. Looking at them mostly for the first time, just like a lot of you at home are. But if we want to start with Division 5 girls for a moment, what jumps out to me, first of all, a lot of teams here, a little bit different than hockey. Got a lot of teams that are fighting to get a state championship, some of them for the first time, and some of these teams trying to get another one on their resume. I see Hopedale at number 1, not to the shock of many, and then Hoosick Valley at number 2. Hoosick Valley, of course, in that state championship game last year, so they have a championship pedigree to them. And then plenty of preliminary games. Do I see, for girls basketball, number 31 Palmer versus number 34 Ware? That's a huge Western Mass rivalry game.
Okay.
Palmer and Ware. What a preliminary game that is going to be. I'm very interested to see how that goes. I've covered the Palmer-Ware football game in Western Massachusetts a few times. Those two programs, at least in football, have been playing each other for over 100 years. They don't stop for anything. I imagine the same goes on the basketball court as well. So that gym is going to be packed at Palmer for that preliminary game. I'm seeing Mohawk Trail Regional made it, the number 39 seed. They're going to take on Holbrook in a preliminary round game. We got, a little over half a dozen here preliminary round games. Plenty of teams. I see an all-Western Mass game here. Number 27 Greenfield will play number 38 Bay State Academy. This is D5 girls basketball we're looking at in a preliminary game. What's jumping out to you, P? Anything? What are you seeing?
Well, just the amount of teams in this division. I have like 43 teams, I believe, in this division for girls basketball. So the preliminary games will be important. And then you also look at the top, back to the top of the bracket, team like Maynard. They're number 3 in girls basketball. And also Lennox Memorial. So Western Mass heavily represented in this division. And on. You look at some teams in the middle. Douglas, number 7th ranked team. They'll play the winner of Holbrook Mohawk Trail Regional. And also St. John Paul, that will be a number 6 seed against the winner of, you mentioned Greenfield and Bay State Academy. Lennox Memorial will play the winner of Keith Tech in Fenway. So just some great matchups. Hopedale with number 1 and Hoosick Valley number 2. Be interesting to see if they meet in the finals. That would be a great matchup.
Yeah, speaking of Hopedale, I remember seeing them in the state championship. I think it was 2022. Had a great point guard who just jumped, couldn't not watch her play. Bree Frangillo, who's now at Emerson, who's doing a great job lighting up the stat sheet at the collegiate level now. She was a 2,000-plus point scorer, and that was back in 2022. But now they got another great scorer, Phoebe Carroll. She scored her 1,000th career point early on this regular season. So Hopedale knows how to, produce girls basketball players that love to score the ball. So now Phoebe's doing it at a high level for Hopedale, trying to get them back to the mountaintop. I think we talked a little bit before the show about Renaissance, who here, the number 5 seed, they made it to the Final Four last year in this bracket. They have 2 of the better younger players in Division 5, maybe in the state, 2 of the better underclassmen. They got Zion Wallace, who's an 8th grader, who seemingly, she looks like she could score 1,000 if she keeps playing at Renaissance by the time she's a junior. She's been incredible. Sinai Baker, a sophomore, she just hit 1,000 points for her career as a sophomore at Renaissance earlier this regular season. So she's been lighting it up. Zion Wallace also, she can step out and make those corner threes as well. So they interest me as a team that's young but super talented in Division 5, that being Renaissance. So that is Division 5 for the girls. If we want to take a look now here, Pete, at Division 4, if we want to give an old flip here again, we're looking at this first time as everybody else, so let's absorb this as we flip.
So this is the eye test. This is so many teams in this division.
Yes, we were talking about how many teams
50 teams in this division, which is amazing, all the way down to Roxbury Prep Charter School, number 50. Wouldn't be something if they make a little noise in the tournament.
This is why they call it March Madness, I guess. You get all these teams in here. Yeah, so what jumps out? Cathedral at number 1, as you'd anticipate, a team that's, if they're not winning the state championship, they're in the state championship game seemingly every year this last half decade. They've won back-to-back. They're one of those teams that's going to go for 3 in a row here as well. I see Millis locking down that number 2 spot. I think they're coming in 13-7, but that power rating of theirs is really good.
Yeah, they play in the Tri-Valley League, which is a good league, and not a big school, but they're able to put a great group of girls out on the basketball court. Also, South Hadley, and then is number 3. Number 4 is Bourne. Bourne has been red hot in basketball the last few years, boys and girls.
Boys and girls.
Yes, very strong, and so Bourne takes the number 4 seed, and on we go. A lot of teams in the middle. There should be some good opening matchups. South Hadley with that number 3 seed will play the winner of Southwick versus Mamaroneck, and so it should be a good bracket. So many teams to get through. That's why we said almost 6,000 players in this tournament.
That's right.
Which is amazing, and we wish them the best.
Yeah, that's right. You mentioned Millis. They have the championship pedigree. I think it was 10 years ago, 2014, 2015. They won those back-to-back state championships. So, of course, these are all different girls now. Those girls were maybe 7, 8 years old back then. But the Millis has that history of excelling at the highest level. So I'm sure they're excited as the number 2 seed to try and sort of plant their flag in the year 2025. You mentioned South Hadley, a team that was in the state championship last year. They only graduated one senior, Drew Alley, who was a very important senior, one of the better leaders in Western Massachusetts last year. But they bring back plenty of talent. They bring back Kara and Caitlin Dean, 2 of the primary players. You imagine a team that was just in the state championship. You graduate one girl, you're able to sort of weather that storm and move from there. But yeah, just a really deep field here. I mean, I know with hockey, I was reading all the preliminary games, but we got plenty here in Division 4, so that might be a whole show on its own. But just looking at the teams, like you mentioned, Roxbury Prep making it at number 50, Excel Academy Charter at 49, South Lancaster Academy at 48. All these teams working their hardest at the end of the regular season to make sure that they were 500 to earn a spot here, and it seems like we got more than a handful.
You have teams too like Millbury, number 9. They have a good tradition of basketball there, South Worcester area. Cohasset, strong team. They have the 5 seed. Carver, a number 6 seed. So we kind of spread out all over the state. 2 undefeated teams, right? Let's see, that was Division 5. I'm sorry. So just some good matchups, even in the middle of the pack, like Tingsboro at a number 8 seed, and they could make some noise in the tournament as well.
Absolutely. And before we move forward into Division 3, I was able to notice as well with some of these Western Mass teams, namely South Hadley, some of these higher seeds, they're also playing in the Western Mass tournament right now, the separate Western Mass tournament. There were some of those championship games today. I know when we were talking about Division 5, Renaissance and Lennox, 2 undefeated teams that are playing each other later today, for a Western Mass championship. So some of these Western Mass teams may be getting a little taste of the postseason, the Western Mass postseason, which Western Mass loves and covets before the start of the postseason, the state postseason.
So it may knock we'll knock at least one undefeated team off the ranks because they'll be playing against each other.
Sure, yeah. And then does that light a fire? Who knows? Well, I'm excited to find out. But so that's Division 4. Quite a loaded field as we showed you. We got 50 teams in it. And before we move on to Division 3, though, I think if we're going to talk Division 3, you have to be able to talk about Oakmont and the girls basketball team, the year that they've had so far. And I think we have them here. We got Oakmont in the building. Going once.
Really, Oakmont, another team that was undefeated up until a recent game, right, in the Clark tournament. Yeah.
Yes.
Is Oakmont with us?
Yes.
Okay, great. Welcome, girls, to the show, and congratulations on your season. 20-1. Could you please identify yourselves, who you are, and what year you're in, and what position you play for the Oakmont team?
My name's Amaya, and I'm a senior, and I run point.
I'm Allie Hazel. I'm a senior, and I'm a forward.
I'm Molly Horgan. I'm a senior, and I'm a forward.
I'm Kira Pappas. I'm a senior, and I'm a guard.
Okay, great. So you're 20-0, and I guess you played in the Clark tournament. Was it a tough? I think you played Uxbridge, and it was a tough game there, huh? No.
We played in the Shuba.
Okay. All right. And tell us about your season. How has it gone so far?
It was going
Good. We were undefeated up until last night. We've been playing good together. We've been working hard.
The chemistry is really strong on our team, and I think it just showed through with our 20-0 record.
One thing about the style of play, you've had a lot of low-scoring games. Is that correct? Like in the 30s? I had you like...
A good amount.
Yeah. Like earlier on, I think you beat Gardner 39-37. Do you remember that game? What was that game like? Nip and tuck?
Yeah, that was our first game of the season.
Yeah.
I think nerves got the best of us, but pulled through at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. How would you characterize your style of play?
I think we're a very defensive team. We prioritize defense. We're also a very fast team. We work hard on the court.
Yeah, we love to push the ball up the floor, and we have a lot of chemistry with the girls because we've been playing together for so long.
How long have you been playing hoops?
I mean, I've been playing since second grade.
Yeah.
I think that goes for most of us.
Yeah. All right. What were some of your other big victories on the season? You had a lot of them. Obviously, you were 20-0 until your last game. What about some of the other games? What do you remember from some of the good competition you've had?
Shepherd Hill, Hudson.
Yeah.
Groton
Dunstable, Littleton.
Yeah.
Those were all.
Yeah, the Littleton score was 34-29. So your defense must have been shining in that game. Do you play a player-to-player defense, a zone defense? How do you kind of tackle it on the defensive side of the ball?
Zone.
Zone? Yeah, what type of zone? What type of zone?
2-3.
2-3? Okay. Yeah. Who grabs all your rebounds for you down low?
Molly Horgan.
Yeah. How many? What's your technique, Molly, for grabbing those boards?
Jumping.
I mean, just going to get it.
Yeah. You see the ball and you grab the ball, right?
Yep.
You come down with the ball while your opponents are going up for the ball. That's how you do it. Okay. So, what about your seed? Do you know who you'll be playing here this year?
Watertown.
Watertown. What do we know about Watertown? Anything?
Not much.
Not too much at all.
Yeah. How will you get ready for that game? Will you have some good chalkboard sessions or whiteboard sessions?
Yes, lots of film.
Practice.
Yeah. How would you describe the culture at Oakmont around girls basketball?
Our coaches are very positive, and they have our backs, and it makes us play better as a team.
Yeah. All right. Well, we wish you good luck in the tournament. You've had a great season going. I'm sure you want to keep it that way. Thanks for coming on with us, and all the best to your team.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks a lot. So, 20-0, a little slip up, I guess, last night, but what a season! I'm amazed with those low scores, though. It wins at 39, 29-20, 37-20, 34-29, 38-33, 43-40. So they have a way of winning the close games. She mentioned defense, and that's obviously a strong suit of them.
Right. And when it comes to the, you mentioned that the Clark tournament and the game against Neshoba last night. I mean, the Clark tournament, and for the Central Mass people know, Clark tournament, that's big deal. I remember back when I was in high school a decade plus ago, it's like if you didn't make the postseason, but you did something good at the Clark, that always bided well. But I'm sure with the Oakmont girls, maybe that little fire under them a little bit right before this postseason start to say like, hey, you can lose to anybody on any given day. Of course, Neshoba, a great program, nothing to sneeze at, and definitely earned that win. But it'll be interesting to see how that lights a fire for them going forward. So yeah, thank you again to Oakmont for stopping by, and that really is a good way to kick off our conversation as we, I think, are looking at D3 girls now. We just chatted with Oakmont. We mentioned 20-0 coming into last night. They want their first state championship for themselves, but Foxborough, they are the returning two-time champions. Coach Lisa Downs leading the way over there. They beat Norwell in the title game last year. Foxborough locked down that number 2 seed. we spoke to St. Mary's of Lynn earlier. They locked down that 1 seed. Number 3, Norwell's got number 3, Medway at 4, Pittsfield at 5. And Pittsfield, to me, a Western Mass program coming out of the Berkshires, had a huge win against Springfield Central in the regular season.
That is big.
Yeah,
them.
one of the first losses in the last few years Springfield Central has had to a Western Massachusetts program. So the Generals, they ran the floor that night, and one of the better defensive programs in all of Western Massachusetts, really all of Division III. Statewide, that's really how they win games, is through their defense. Then on offense, Kiana Summer, she's a great shot creator, really good two-way player, one of the smarter basketball players, basketball IQ-wise in the region. Caprice Conyers, she's a freshman. She comes off the bench, but she plays like an upperclassman. She gets the job done and does whatever she needs to do to help the team be successful as well. And the list goes on. There's Harlan Castillo. She's a machine. She's an X factor for them as well. She was a Mass Live Western Massachusetts Super 7 selection. She's a defensive specialist. She's one of the best in the region, so I'm interested to see what Pittsfield is going to do. They of course earned a bye. They're in the round of 32. They're going to play the winner of Wilmington and Whittier Tech. But when it comes to the rest of this bracket at large here, Pete, Division III, what's jumping out to you?
Well, I look at the top, St. Mary's and Foxborough. I'm familiar with Foxborough. I've seen them play this year, a really strong team. The Tri-Valley League holds a number 9 slot. Medway is also in the Tri-Valley League, so Tri-Valley well represented. Down on the Cape, Dennis Yarmouth, they're the 21 seed. They'll have a matchup with North Reading. And go to the North Shore, and Newburyport will have, this will be a good 16-17 matchup with Springfield International Charter. I'm not that familiar with Springfield International Charter. Perhaps you are, Gage, but that should be a good matchup, and that's the bracket that has St. Mary's in it. The winner of that, if St. Mary's wins against the Dover, Sherburne, Belchertown winner, that's who the Newburyport Springfield International Charter will play. So that looks good at the top of the bracket. And then you also have Fontbonne, and they'll be a number 6 seeds, so they could have a strong showing, as could Pentucket Regional, a number 7, awaiting the winner of Stoneham versus St. Paul's Diocesan.
Yeah, you mentioned Springfield International Charter. That's a program with championship pedigree. Won the state championship just a few years ago now. Coach Tyrone Reed, he knows how to coach his girls well. I think that state championship winning team had Alicia Mitchell on it, who was a University of Cincinnati commit. So that's a program these last few years, formerly known as Sabas for the people that might not know that. It might be better name recognition-wise. But Springfield International Charter, they've definitely got that championship pedigree. So that does make the game with Newburyport a little bit more interesting as well. For me, that's 16 and 17. That's always really interesting. And you mentioned, again, there's so much fun in those middle ones.
Yes.
Like you said, like North Reading and Dennis Yarmouth, 12 versus 21.
Yeah, and we had Oakmont on, and they'll have Waterton. That's a good matchup. Oakmont, they had the 20-0 record coming into the rankings, but they've dropped back to the 18 slot. Watertown at 15, so Oakmont will actually be an underdog in that game.
Yeah, maybe for the first time in a while, maybe. I wonder for them. So again, interesting to see how that affects mindset. What do we do here? If the seniors might say, like, hey, there's no time, we need to lock in.
Right.
It's time to go.
Right.
So a lot of interesting scenarios in Division III, but the fun keeps going. If we want to take a look at Division II, the Division II girls as well, if we can find it here amongst the pile of brackets we have here. Division II, taking a look at D2 girls. Let's see what jumps out. Medfield held down that top seed. They're going to be number 1, historically good. They're the reigning champions. So to no one's surprise, they're at that 1 spot. Dartmouth with the number 2. They locked down the 2 spot. Of course, these 2 teams earned first round byes. From looking at teams that got above that 500 mark and are now in the postseason, you got Grafton, the number 43 seed. They're going to go on the road, play number 22, Bill Ricka. Lowell, the number 38 seed. They're going to go on the road and play number 27, Burlington. And then Bay Path, my hometown, Bay Path Minutemen, number 37 seeded. They're going to go on the road and play Hingham, who is the number 28 seed. But as I look around, what jumps out to me, as I mentioned, Medfield number 1, Dartmouth number 2, Notre Dame Hingham number 4. Notre Dame Academy regularly scoring. They're touching the 70s every now and then during the regular season. I think I may have even seen 80s for in a game or two. So they know how to score, and by they, in large part, I mean Ava Orlando is a 2,000-point scorer for Notre Dame Academy. She just hit 2,000 recently, so she's the one. She's doing a lot of that scoring, but a lot of athletes on that team who aren't just really good girls basketball players, also some volleyball players as well. And if you know girls volleyball in Massachusetts, Notre Dame Academy, nothing to sneeze at with the production they've had as a program the last few years. They made it, this girls basketball team from Notre Dame Academy, to the Elite Eight last year, fell to Worcester South, and now they're the number 4 seed this year, Notre Dame is, so they seem reloaded. I know you mentioned Fontbonne as well, who we see in here. Alana McLean has been a really good point guard for them. She does a lot. She's a floor general. Her and Maggie Bedard have been leading the way for Fontbonne so far this year. And if I look at Ursuline, Alana Horgan, another great player in the Catholic Conference, leading the way for them. And if I see, I think Minnechaug is in here. I think I recall seeing them if I do my I Spy with my
they're the
eye.
19th ranked. They'll play Walpole.
Yes.
And so that's at Walpole. So that should be a good. That's in the Norwood bracket as well. So that would be a good matchup. You know, you mentioned South High. They're the number 6 seed. Last year they played Medfield in the championship game, and South was really strong. And Medfield had a really not an easy time, but they took that game pretty easily, so they're looking to repeat. And then again, Medfield girls number 1 in Division II, Medfield boys number 1 in Division II. Tremendous.
Strong programs for the both of them. And this is where it gets interesting for me. I see a team, like I mentioned Minnechaug, and you said that the number 19 seed playing number 14 Walpole. I just mentioned earlier Pittsfield. They got that win over Springfield Central. Minnechaug has a win over Pittsfield this year. And as I mentioned, Pittsfield, great Division III program. Interesting win over Springfield Central, but Minnechaug, they play team ball, great defense. Everyone's sort of, I mean, they have the athletes, but it's not like, okay, we got one girl and then it's everybody else. They have like a solid starting 5 where it's sort of a 5-headed monster a little bit, a 5-headed sort of dragon there for the Falcons.
Yeah.
So that's going to be an interesting game. I'm interested in that, them playing number 14 Walpole in that round of 32 game. I see Northampton as well, who is one of the perennially strong programs in Western Mass. When I think of Western Mass basketball, I think of Springfield Central. I think of Northampton. Those are the first 2 that come off the top of the head. They locked down a top 10 seed. They're number 9. They're going to play either Marblehead or Reading in the round of 32. Bree Heafy is the leader there. It seems like she's been playing there for like 7 years now. Whenever I just think of Northampton, I think of Bree Heafy when it comes to girls basketball. But Emmy Calkins is sort of the one. I mean, she's not just waiting in the wings. She's sort of seizing her moment. She's an underclassman, and she's been a lights-out outside shooter for the Blue Devils. So that's interesting as well for Northampton. They locked down that top 10 seed, but a lot of intrigue here in D2, Pete.
A lot of intrigue, and you look at Westwood, a very strong team, and also some matchups in the middle of the bracket. Oliver Ames and Leominster, 2 good teams, good traditions of basketball, and Wakefield Memorial and Bishop Fenwick. Bishop Fenwick, number 17 seed in Wakefield. That'll be a good matchup as well. So kind of a nice bracket, and again, Medfield 1, Dartmouth 2, Norwood 3, Notre Dame Hingham 4.
Wow, just a really good, depth of talent here and depth of strong programs in D2. But let's take ourselves a flip. Let's get to Division I as we have it here for the girls. Before we look at the top seeds, let's just take a look at who got in, who got above that 500 mark to earn their spot in the state tournament. I see Lynn English, number 38, they're going to play number 27 Attleboro in a preliminary. I see Concord Carlisle at number 34. They're going to play number 31 Durfee in a preliminary game as well. I'm seeing Waltham and Arlington in a preliminary game, number 33 versus number 32. And then looking at the 1 seed, Wachusett, it's the Mountaineers, just a perennially strong program in Central Massachusetts. Wachusett being one of the bigger, I think maybe the biggest public school in Central Massachusetts. So they got a lot of student athletes over there, and they're making the most of their opportunity, locking down another top seed. You got Fian at number 2. They're the returning champs. They lost to St. Mary's late in the regular season on a buzzer beater not too long ago. But that doesn't seem to have affected the power rating too much. Still locking down that number 2 spot. They're one of the best in this division. That's one of their only losses. So a lot to look at here. What are you seeing, Pete?
Well, I'm looking at some of the other seeds. You mentioned Springfield Central. It's kind of a little bit surprising not to see them 1 or 2.
Sure.
So they get a 3 seed, and they'll have an opening round bye. Then they'll play the winner of Acton Boxborough versus Malden, and then Braintree awaits the winner of Shrewsbury versus Revere. So again, some good Shrewsbury. I don't think has had the season they've had in recent years, but they're still doing well. Other teams in the bracket. Keeping in the Hockomock League, Franklin will play Taunton, and they'll host the Taunton team. That should be a good matchup. Central Catholic in Algonquin. Central out in the Lawrence area, number 8 in the state this year in Division 1, and against Algonquin, which is perennial been a strong team as well. And then that nice 16-17 matchup, Lincoln Sudbury against Hopkinton. And Hopkinton, very strong team, very growing community there. Hopkinton, big student population, and they'll play Lincoln Sudbury for the right to play the winner of either Arlington Waltham versus Wachusett or Wachusett Regional.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Springfield Central, one of the programs out west that really challenges itself with its schedule, with finding teams out of state, whether it be New York or elsewhere. And leading the way for them has been Jalen Garvin Martin. I think this is her second year with the program. She's really been the straw that stirs the drink offensively, defensively. She controls the ball. She is the floor general, and she's been at the front of things for Central. And then there's Genevieve Mars, who's a little bit of a rising contributor for the program, a perimeter player, really important player to have on the perimeter for the Golden Eagles, sort of a two-way player. And you have Angela Hector at center, of course, as well, who is a super talented player, and everybody knew was going to be a big contributor for the Golden Eagles coming into this year. But they're holding the torch high for Western Mass, it appears, in D1. And I don't know if we mentioned, I think we did, Walpole in this mix as well, if I can find them. Pete, you've been a good, I guess, a set of eyes for me.
Yeah, so Walpole. Can't find them.
Are they in D1? I might even be wrong.
Yeah, they may not be in D1.
I'm right about most things, ladies and gentlemen, but maybe not in this circumstance. But either way, Walpole had themselves a good year as well. Bella Bingham, super important for them. So I see Framingham at 11. I think we mentioned this. This is a Bay State Conference matchup here in Division 1. Number 11, Framingham. Number 22, Brookline. Allie Regan is a 1,000-point scorer for Framingham. Her older sister is also a 1,000-point scorer. She's got her younger sister, Steffi. She's a sophomore on the team. And, we don't want to set expectations, but I think she's doing pretty well in her role as an underclassman at Framingham as well. So, yeah, this is quite a breadth or a depth of talent here. But before we move forward to the boys' side of things, speaking of the Bay State Conference and speaking of Brookline, I think we have Brookline girls basketball on the line. Do we have you, ladies? Maybe, maybe not. Anyway, I mean, the Warriors, they've had themselves a great year, one way or another. I don't think they made the postseason last year, but qualified for the postseason this year as the number 22 seed. Do we have you on the line, Warriors?
They have to unmute themselves.
You might be muted. Is what I'm being told. Either way, just taking a look here for the Warriors.
Hi.
Oh, here we go. There they are.
Yeah, we're from Braintree.
Oh, Braintree. I might just be. Maybe I need glasses. Maybe where did you buy yours, Pete? I'm not sure. I might get. Well, so welcome, ladies, to the show. I might just be illiterate, but I'm happy to have you here anyway. So we have quite a group here from Braintree Girls Hoops. Can we go around the kitchen? I'm assuming this is and sort of do some intros.
Okay, so I'm Frankie Stodorsha, and I'm the captain. I'm a senior, and I'm a forward.
I'm Sophie Rotundo. I'm a junior, and I'm a guard.
I'm Francesca Mazzini. I'm also a junior, and I'm also a guard.
I'm Kiana O'Sullivan. I'm a senior, and I'm a guard and forward. I'm Izzy Rotundo. I'm a sophomore, and I'm a forward.
I'm Eva Downing. I'm also a sophomore, and I'm a guard.
I'm Kira Zolano. I'm a senior, and I'm a guard.
I'm Avery Diudi. I'm a sophomore and also a guard.
Well, I'm happy to.
I'm a sophomore and I'm also a guard.
Well, I'm happy to have the entire varsity JV and freshman girls basketball team. We're very excited to have you all here. Thank you for joining us. So Braintree, my apologies on earlier. Show some respect to the number 4 seed in Division 1. My apologies. So you guys are the number 4 seed. You're going to play either the winner. You're going to play either Revere or Shrewsbury in your round of 32 game. But I just want to open this up to anybody here who wants to take a stab. Tell me about this year. I mean, in the Bay State Conference, it's never easy. There's a lot of great programs in the conference. I'm sure you guys challenge yourselves when it comes to the out-of-league teams as well. But tell me about this year. What has made this year so special for you guys to the point where you're able to lock down that top 5 seed?
I mean, I feel like this year's so special because so many different players have stepped up this year, including a bunch of sophomores, a bunch of juniors. I feel like, honestly, just everyone on the team. We have majority sophomores on the team, and honestly, they don't even play like they're underclassmen. They just go out there and play basketball, and it's huge. And it is difficult being in the Bay State League, but we do better against better teams.
Mm-hmm.
And
we play up to them.
Yeah. So when we play teams like, we look forward to playing Walpole, Needham,
Natick.
Natick, New and North. Like, we always do so much better when we play against better teams.
Got it. And with so many sophomores on the team, so with so many underclassmen, that you need to contribute at a high level to be able to get this top seed. Who are the seniors that are sort of telling the underclassmen, like, hey, no, squirting water on the bus on the way back from the home games, get off your phone. We're trying to pay attention here in the middle of the, what's it like having a younger team, but then also having the upperclassmen mixed in as well? I mean, you guys, a lot of the older girls probably have to step up and be leaders with such a younger team.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the upperclassmen have to sometimes put them in their place.
But I feel like they're like, for the most part, like, we don't really have to say much. Like, I feel like we're all like friends on the team, and like no one really like goofs off. Like, we take practice seriously, and like our team chemistry is just much better this year, I think.
Yeah. Everyone is like here because everyone wants to win, so everyone's taking it pretty serious.
Yeah.
So the underclassmen act pretty mature.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. And it's obviously helped you guys to be able to lock down one of these top 5 seeds. But what I'm interested in is when it comes to the year you guys have had, especially being a top 5 seed, there might be people that don't know Braintree girls basketball and they see like, oh, number 4 seed, they've won a bunch of games. They probably haven't been through any hardships. They probably just sort of ran the table, or they had a great year. But when it comes to being able to lock down this seed, there are those tough practices. There are those hard things you have to go through. Was there a moment during this regular season that you felt like maybe after the game, maybe on the bus or in the locker room after the game, you guys kind of looked around and said like, okay, we really have something good here? What was there a moment for you guys during this season so far where you felt like you were the most proud of accomplishing or felt good about?
I feel like it was when we played Natick for the first time, or honestly, our first game of the season, we played Walpole, and we started off really strong with a ton of good games like Walpole and Needham. And then we went on a really good run beating North Quincy and Quincy.
Yeah, those are definitely our toughest games.
Yeah, and I feel like we knew before the season started that we were going to have a pretty good team this year, but that just like winning those games just like cleared it in our heads for us.
Yeah, like it was such a difference from last year. Like last year we would have had like a lot more difficulty pulling through with those wins. Like even if and some of those games we had been down and we kind of came back and pulled through with the wins. So I think just having those wins showed the difference from last year even.
Yeah, last year our mindset was totally different. We were just playing not to lose, but this year we have the confidence that we can
win
really
like every game,
any team.
Got it. That's a great mindset. Yeah, the playing not to lose, but the playing to win. That's once that switch flips, it's hard to flip back, and it's obviously worked well for all of you. But before we let you go, I want to shout out whose kitchen are we in? What's going on here? Whose kitchen are we in? We're in your kitchen. So shout out to you for donating your kitchen, for having us on the show. Shout out to all of you. Best of luck in your round of 32 game. Like I said, Braintree, number 4 seed. They're either going to play Shrewsbury or they're going to play Revere. One way or another. Best of luck, ladies. Thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you.
All right. Best of luck to the Womps as they disembark, and maybe they have like a little lunch or something in her kitchen.
You know, not only did they win close games, but they won at one point 13 games in a row this season. So they really got on a roll. They did lose to Natick once, but they won 7 games this year by scoring only in the 40s. So I think they're battle-tested. You know, those close games, those low-scoring games, I'm sure defense has been strong for them, and you saw all of that excitement. That's probably a record for most appearances on one Zoom call by one team.
You should have seen me and Jay Horgan. We had the Bay Path football team during the fall, and it was the entire football team. More the merrier. Honestly, I mean, the more the merrier. I thought that was great. But shout out to I should have asked as well, because Braintree boys, and we're going to be talking about the boys here on the other side of this. They're also having a great year. So I'd be interested to know what type of, is there a rivalry, like who's better, the girls or the boys? But I'm sure with the Womps, it's all supporting one another. But before we move off of girls basketball, again, like I said in the hockey show, Pete, you know, we basically know everything, but sometimes you got to reach out and talk to people who might know more than you and I do. And so we have a great rundown here of people who can talk about girls basketball, and starting with my coworker in Eastern Massachusetts from Mass Live, Chloe Patel. Chloe, are you here?
Yes, I am here, Gage.
Well, I'm so happy to see you, Chloe, coming to us live from I'm assuming a Dunkin' Donuts parking lot.
No, I am actually at Algonquin Regional High School right now, getting ready to head in for gymnastics South Sectionals.
See, this is why Chloe's the best. She works hard. She's going to do gymnastics. She's here for the show. Yeah. She's phenomenal. So this is why we have her here. So, Chloe, before I let you get in there and take in the all-around and the bars and the beam and such things, I want to, if we can, talk about some girls basketball. I know you've been locked in on the Bay State Conference and some Catholic Conference as well. We just spoke to the Braintree girls here on the show. So I'm wondering if you, I mean, they did a pretty good job of explaining themselves in the year that they've had. But when it comes to the Braintree girls, what has jumped out the most to you, and why do you feel like they were able to lock down the number 4 seed this year?
Yeah, for sure. I think they said it best themselves. You know, last year they were playing not to lose by a lot. They were 10-10 last year, but this year they completely, you know, turned it around, 18-2, 18-1 until last week against Natick, and that was a hard-fought game. That's not, you know, a game that they're losing by a lot. So, you know, just their mentality, I think, has helped a lot. They're a very defensive-minded team, and so I think just putting all those pieces together and the chemistry on the team has really just helped them propel them to a top 5 spot.
Got it. And looking, I guess, around the rest of the Bay State Conference, you've seen a lot of different programs in the Bay State Conference this year, obviously, Braintree being one of the main ones. And then there's, I mean, Malden Catholic as well on the girls' side, just looking at the Catholic Conference. And we talked about it earlier, but when it comes to the state postseason, you got to be good, you're not just 1 through 5, 1 through 15, 1 through 14, but when it comes to the state postseason, that's when the best really rises to the top and can be game changers and really lockdown games late in championship situations. And so when it comes to any of the teams that have qualified for the postseason that you've seen, whether it be Braintree, Malden Catholic, or anything like that, who are some players at Brookline I'm seeing as well, Framingham, who are some players from the teams that you've seen that are going to be fighting for a state championship that you feel like are going to be difference makers here in the next month?
Yeah, for sure. I think kind of going right below Braintree, Natick's at number 6. I think a lot of their players, they didn't qualify for the postseason last year. They haven't won a postseason game since any of the players have been on the roster. So I think that's going to be one of those teams that just really has a lot of fuel to the, like, is just going to put in a lot in every single game because they're playing to win. They haven't really been here before, but they're playing great. They have a lot of high scoring games. They're winning by a lot, and I'm biased towards the Bay State Conference because I've been watching it all year, but that's a tough conference. How many of those teams advance to the postseason, the statewide tournament? Like 8 out of 10, I think. So just a really great conference to play in and prepares you for the statewide tournament. I think on Natick, Olivia Penn runs point there, and she's been a great, stabilizer for that team, getting them ready to go. So I think it'll be an interesting postseason.
All right, cool. That's a great stat. 8 out of 10. I mean, you're right. Just looking at it here, I mean, Natick, Framingham, Brookline, Braintree, Newton North, just so many in Division 1. So, yeah, nothing to sneeze at. Those Braintree girls being able to lock down a number 4 seed. You got to get through all of those teams to be able to do such a thing. and they did it. But yeah, thank you so much, Chloe. Again, I know you got to get in there and you got to lock it down at Algonquin. So we'll let you unplug the laptop from the car charger and let you get in there. Thank you so much, Chloe.
Sounds good. Thanks.
All right, that was Chloe Patel. I'll be seeing her at our Friday meeting next week. She's been great teammate out in Eastern Mass. Just a great person to work with, and also we just can't help it. We just Mass Live. There's me, there's Chloe. I want to, if we can, also bring in Pete. We got Kenny Minogue, my coworker from Mass Live, to talk some Western Mass girls basketball. Kenny, are you with us?
Hey, Gage, how's it going?
I'm doing well. Also from the car. Where are we at, Kenny?
I'm over here at Westfield High School for the Class A sectional in Western Mass final for Northampton Springfield Central later today.
Gotcha. See, so we were talking a little bit about this, Pete, about the Western Mass tournaments and how, although they may not count the championship games for the power rankings, those games, I mean, they can kind of tell teams a lot before they go into this state tournament. But I guess we'll just start, if we can, Kenny, with, you mentioned you're seeing Class A, you're seeing Northampton, you're seeing Springfield Central. I said when we were talking about Division I girls basketball earlier, when I think of Western Mass girls basketball, I immediately think of Springfield Central and Northampton. To me, those are the two programs I think of first, and they are now playing in the Class A Western Mass tournament. So I'm interested, Kenny, if we could just start with Springfield Central. I mentioned Jalen Garvin-Martin and the impact she has made in her time with the Golden Eagles. I mentioned as well Pittsfield and their defense. There's just so much Divisions 1 through 5. But when it comes to the teams that you've seen in person, whether it be once, twice, 3 times this year, who and what has impressed you the most about the teams that you've seen that have qualified for the postseason in Western Mass?
So I'll start with Springfield Central, just because that's where Division One, the game I'm going to today. Jalen Garvin-Martin has really taken over as the leader offensively for this season. Over 35 three-pointers this season alone. She's approaching 1,000 points as a scorer for Springfield Central, and considering she's coming over she came over as a junior from Chicopee High School, and has been really doing well since transferring over. And I also want to say in the same vein, Giovanna Mars, since transferring from Springfield International, has really stepped into the backcourt offensively alongside, and is actually the leading scorer this season at 229 points, according to our numbers that we are pretty accurate on. I wouldn't say 100%, but nearly. In terms of offensively, she has been a real game changer for them, providing them another option on the perimeter. And she's only a freshman, but she's already had 2 years of experience playing at Springfield International that has gotten her to be a contributor right from the get-go. And when you already have had an interior force like Angela Hector inside that can always provide you that scoring inside, as well as providing you that consistent defense inside, Springfield Central just has now so many more options than I think that they had last year coming into the tournament. So I would start with them in terms of Division One. Elsewhere, I love the work that Minnechaw and Northampton have done in Division Two, and I do think that Northampton is a proper dark horse contender in Division Two. But I have to move straight over to Division Three and talk about Pittsfield, because they've had a remarkable season. And also point out how exactly they got that win against Springfield Central, because that's something that no Western Mass team has done since I joined Mass Live, like 2.5 years ago. So they did that based off of their defense. That's a very aggressive, high press team that plays up the court and really forces a lot of turnovers. That is really their bread and butter. And it sounds easy to control the ball and to not turn over, but this is a team that is going to make you commit turnovers. And so it's about whether or not you can regain that composure when they go on that run, because I don't think it's possible to really prevent them from getting steals and creating that offense. If you can find a way to control the ball, then you do have a much better chance against the Pittsfield defense. But they're going to find those cracks in your offense. that's going to create problems for you.
Right, right, and it's interesting to think, hearing you talk about it when it comes to Western Massachusetts, just generally, there's a lot spread out from D1, talking Springfield Central, down to the 3 with Pittsfield. But then we look at Division 5, which I know you and I have talked about just a little bit. Yeah, that's how I feel looking at Division 5 when it comes to obviously Hopedale at number 1, which we talked about. But then you have a program like Hoosick Valley at number 2. You got a lot of Berkshire representation. You got Drury at number 8, Lee at number 9, Lennox at number 4. Wow, what a state postseason for the Berkshires here, getting all those top 10 seeds. But the thing I really I'm interested in hearing your perspective on here, Kenny. Number 5, Renaissance. A team that was in the Final Four last year, if I'm not mistaken, has those 2 young stars, Sinai Baker and Zion Wallace. 2 young players that are really 2 of the best in Western Massachusetts, although young, but really have that raw talent. Tell me about Renaissance this year in comparison to last year. I know Wallace is coming in as an 8th grader this year, so a little bit of a different element, another year older. What is different in your estimation when it comes to Renaissance this year in comparison to last year?
I think to me the biggest difference for them is a higher level of professionalism. I wouldn't say they still have even reached the maximum of their potential just because this is a team that is so young. All their top players for the most part are all in their sophomore or under class, including Sinai Baker, including Zion Wallace, who herself is an 8th grader. I think also just a much higher degree of fitness from the team in terms of ability to run up and down the court and consistent and maintain defensive pressure and their offensive pressure because they play at such a high pace. I think lastly, the thing that is biggest difference for them is a knowledge of what is actually high level competition, what they're going to see in the state tournament. Last year, they came into the state tournament pretty fresh, pretty new in terms of what they were going to be expecting to see. They'd really only gotten a taste of high-level competition in the Western Mass tournament, the sectional tournament here, which they had won Class C. But they really did not have that too much of a challenging regular season schedule compared to this season. They got a couple of games in the Hoop Hall Invitational tournament back in January. When they played against Taunton High School and New London High School, beating both teams, beating both programs, both larger programs in terms of where their high school population is pulling from. So pretty respectable wins in that way, and much higher level competition that they are used to in the regular season. So I think those wins really prepared them for what they're going to see again in the state tournament and what they're going to see today in the game against Lennox, because that's a team that is much better than last year. I think that's why they're coming in this year undefeated as well in the Berkshires. So you really, I want to give credit. I have not seen too many of these teams outside of the Western Mass. I've not seen Hopedale. I've not seen Maynard, but I've not seen St. John Paul, Douglas. I'm not seeing these teams, but the argument can be made for a all-Western Mass Final Four, just because of the fact that there are so many teams in this top 10 that I genuinely think need to be mentioned. Like the defending state champions, Hoosick Valley, cannot be ignored. Ashland LaSure has led this team all season long, and they have played one of the most difficult competitions in Division 5, especially for Western Mass, specifically playing against a lot of higher division teams, getting a couple losses, taking a few bumps and bruises along the way, but they have been a dominant force in the Western Mass region and need to be looked upon as well to defend their title. But I do want to give credit to Renaissance as possibly being the at least Western Mass favorite to return to the final alongside Hoosick Valley.
Kenny, one question for you. You mentioned a lot of the excellence in Western Mass. What do you attribute the passion for basketball in Western Mass to? Is it the fact that the great game of basketball was invented in Springfield, or is there something else going on out there?
I would like to think that as well in the Valley, but I would like to know what is going on in the Berkshires right now, because there is a lot of teams that are coming up in the Berkshires that has been top talents, especially defensively in this year's tournament, that have really that I do expect to make deep runs. Drury as well as one of the top teams in Division 5, and Lee as well. Also, these are teams that are in the top 10, could challenge. And even in other divisions, Wacona Regional in Division 4, I do expect them to win a round or two, could continue to challenge and be a dark horse there in Division 4. There might be something different. It's also just really good coaching. I got to give credit as well to these programs. But yeah, no, it could be that it just is the birthplace of basketball being from Springfield.
It just trickles down. Who knows? Well, Kenny, thank you so much for your insight. I mean, if there's anybody that knows anything about Western Massachusetts girls basketball, it's Kenny, and he's at the Western Mass Class A girls basketball title game, Central and Northampton. So if you want coverage on that game, check out masslive.com, read Kenny Minogue's story. Kenny, we'll let you get out of the car and get in the gym. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Take care, guys.
All right, and before we move on, we had such great insight from Kenny, from Chloe. Yeah. Before we move on to the boys, I do want to show some love a little bit to the Eastern Mass teams, a couple more Eastern Mass teams on the girls' side, and it's my good friend from the Metro West Daily News, Kyle Grabowski. Kyle, do we have you?
I feel like I should go to my car.
Yeah. So where is he now? He's in the home office. Yes. Well, you're locked in. You're ready to go. I know you've had your eye on the bracket since they dropped however long ago, a little over an hour now. Once again, Kyle Grabowski from the Metro West Daily News. We're going to talk a little bit of girls basketball here, Kyle. I know for you and your coverage area, you have more than a handful of girls teams that have really excelled and played at a really high level late in the regular season and now going into this state postseason tournament. I know you've been at the gyms, you've been on the sideline, and you've been in the stands to see a lot of these different programs. But I guess I'll just open it to you. When it comes to the teams that you've seen in person this season, whether it be Divisions 1 through 5 on the girls basketball side, who has qualified for the playoffs? What jumps out to you the most, and who are some of the players that you've seen that you anticipate are going to make a big impact here in the next month?
I really enjoyed watching Hopedale and Phoebe Carroll the couple times that I saw her, because there's not a thing she can't do. She's over 6 feet. She's already scored 1,000 points as a junior. She played in a state championship as an 8th grader, and her coach loves to talk about, she grabbed 20 rebounds in that game. But she's also the person who's the front of their press. She can pass the ball. Her scoring totals aren't huge, but she's got her fingerprints on every area of the game. And then she has this wonderful relationship with their point guard, Mackenzie Reynolds, that is just really fun to watch. Just two players that really understand each other well and have played together for so long. Just in so many sports too. And that's the thing I think we probably all love about small school sports is just these players really get to know each other well. Hopedale just lost in the Clark last night, but they're a team who will play anybody, and they will really make you play their game. They'll press and then just really control the ball. And if that's not something you're familiar with seeing, it can really become overwhelming and become suffocating.
Right. And when it comes to Hopedale, I mean, we're talking a lot about them as we should. A program with championship pedigree, winning a state championship a few years ago, as we mentioned. They're the top seed in their division. But is there any girls teams from your coverage area that you're seeing that might not be that top seed, that top 5, maybe you're in the teens a little bit, or is sort of not in that top 10, but is maybe right outside of it, who, if all things click right and they're playing at their best, could make some noise? Do you have anybody who's qualified for you that kind of fits that bill?
I mean, Framingham in Division 1, because you guys had mentioned some of the Bay State a little, and you talked about Allie Reagan, and she, again, just can do everything, and just is a program that has played everybody. They've played, obviously they're a really tough Bay State league. They've gone outside the state to New Hampshire, and it's just a team that if you can, like you said, if everything goes right, you get the talent on the floor and let them rip. I'm just interested to see them in these situations where the teams maybe aren't as super familiar with them, and but of course I say that, and then they've got Brookline first, and then if they win, they could have their Thanksgiving rival Natick in the second round if they both as a 6-11. But I think if you're looking at one of those outside the top 10 teams, Framingham is definitely one that could do that.
Got it. And I know for you and the teams that you've seen, it's been a lot of girls basketball. But as we turn the page here a little bit to boys basketball, when it comes to boys basketball and a team that you've seen, and then I know you've seen, Pete, when it comes to Franklin on the boys side, locking down the top seed, what's your perspective on the Franklin boys this year? And I mean, obviously a perennially strong program, but when it comes to the Panthers this year on the boys side, what have you seen? Who are the difference makers for them?
I mean, you have to start Caden Sullivan. He was sort of their number 2 guy last year behind Sean O'Leary, who's now at Bates. But Caden was just always a guy that, like, he is going to get out there, and he had to step up and be the number 1 guy. And that doesn't always, like, fit people well, but he is somebody that just has wore it, and it feels like every game it's like 20, 25, 18, even though everybody knows, like, that's the guy we have to look at. That's the guy we have to be, like, afraid of. And then one of, to me, like, their real X factor guy is this kid, Justice Samuels, who's very bouncy, very athletic. They're not like a huge team, but every single person on that team knows what they're supposed to do. And when I was talking to CJ, their coach, he really talks about them as like basketball junkies. Like, they're annoying him to, like, hey, let's watch more film. Let's look at this team. Let's practice this action. So just like 5 guys who really understand the game and love the game and want to really, like, pick it apart and get into the real nitty gritty parts of it. Whereas, like, with some high school teams, I think you're just maybe more trying to have fun or you're relying on athleticism. But these are guys that can pass, shoot, defend, and everybody knows what they're supposed to do and works together.
Kyle, you're right about Caden Sullivan, and Coach C.J. Neely says that his motor never stops, not just on offense but on defense. He's a smothering player. He's tremendous. He missed 1 year because of an illness, yet he's still close to 1,000 points. A tremendous player, one of the greatest of all times. So you're right about him. But I have to ask you, is that T-shirt say, or sweatshirt say free throws, is that an admonition for folks to practice their free throws down the stretch of a game?
They are, free throws are the most important part of the game, but this is a pop punk band from Nashville. That,
Okay. So wait, did you plan that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
If you'd had me on for hockey, I would have done knuckle puck.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've my context clues. I'm just not able to pick it up. But that is Kyle Grabowski. I'm sure I'll be seeing him on a sideline here soon. Kyle Grabowski from the Metro West Daily News. Thank you so much, Kyle, for jumping in.
Oh yeah, man. Happy to see you again, and I'm sure I'll see you around.
All right, see you around, Kyle. Thanks so much again to Kyle. Wow, I was just, if I can just give us a pat on the back for the coverage we just gave girls basketball, may I? If no one else will. That was just great insight by Kyle, Chloe, Kenny, great chatting with the Braintree girls in D1, and wow, what an act to follow as we flip the page to the boys now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, tremendous knowledge there. I was really impressed with Kenny Manuja. Wow, he's everything about all the teams out there, and Chloe as well, and Kyle with the Metro West. It's good to have him on the show.
Yeah, it doesn't get better. We pick our guests well. Yes, we do. And so let's do it then. That was a little bit of a teaser, a little bit of a taste. I know that was some D1 talk for boys of Franklin. I'm sure we will talk about Franklin a little bit more later, but I want to show some love here in D5 with these Division 5 boys brackets. So sound the alarm. We're talking boys basketball now, everybody. Let's look at Division 5. A lot of teams. I think I'm seeing 44, if I still know how to count.
Yes.
Cape Cod Tech got in, and the number 44 seed. They're going to play number 21 Holbrook in a preliminary round game. Looking at another team that got in, got above that, above 500 level. Calvary Chapel Academy, number 43. They're going to play number 22 Avon. I'm seeing McCann Tech, number 38. They're going to play number 27 Maynard. Maynard, a program that went far, won a state championship just a few years ago. I remember that game against Paulo Freire. So another deep one here. Kind of like the girls a little bit as it relates to Division 5. We're seeing a little bit more Western Mass near the top. You obviously have Pioneer Valley at number 1, who we're going to hear from here in a little bit. That's a program, a bunch of seniors. I remember a couple years ago I was covering them. They were all sophomores. They won a Western Mass championship as underclassmen, and now they say, okay, that tastes good, but what about that state hardware? So now as upperclassmen, they're motivated to go to that next level. And then, yes, Hopedale, number 2, just like the girls. The boys are also have been showing out, the number 2 seed here in Division 5. And I know you love the little 15-18 matchup. I'm seeing Munson versus Muniz Academy. Are you excited by any of these kind of teens matchups?
Absolutely. I don't know much about Muniz, but Munson has had some good teams. Hopedale, I've seen them play this year. Just a sound team, great coach. Just team play. They can compete with anybody, so they should be a strong force in the Division 5. And then you look at English High, a number 5 seed, so they're out there. You mentioned Duggan before; they're a number 6 seed this year, and on we go. But I guess you'd have to say the favorite would be Pioneer Valley, one of the few undefeated teams still standing here in the state.
Right. I mean, Pioneer Valley, they played really out in Western Massachusetts when it comes to Division 5. Their top competition is Duggan Academy down, John J. Duggan Academy down in Springfield. They had a regular season game against them and a few weeks ago. It was undefeated against undefeated. Pioneer Valley came out on top. And I think as we speak right now, or maybe a little later on, Pioneer and Duggan playing again for a Western Mass championship as well. So Pioneer, number 1 in the Division 5 state tournament rankings, and then Duggan, number 6. They're on opposite sides, so who knows? I mean, I know Kenny was saying Division 5 girls, could it be an all-Western Mass state championship? I don't know. It would be interesting to see if Pioneer Valley and Duggan go for a 3rd round. But when it comes to Pioneer, just mentioning those kids, the number 1 seed, Braden Thayer leading the way, son of the head coach Scott Thayer. Braden's a 1,000-point scorer. He was a leader as a sophomore on that team that won a Western Mass championship 2 years ago. And there's Kurt Redeker as well, who's not only a good basketball player, pretty good soccer player as well. Those guys have been playing together for as long as anybody can remember. And I mentioned Duggan, a team with Alan Miranda, who's one of the best players in Springfield. He's been great for them, not just this year, but last year as well. They were Western Mass finalists last year, which I think they ended up falling to Pioneer Valley. So this game today has got some extra juice on it, I think, for both these teams. Isaiah Rodriguez, another key player for Duggan as well. He's really turned it on. But the team I'm interested in is, and kind of bearing the lead, even really mentioning them, is Hoosick Valley. They're the reigning Western Mass champs, so it was Hoosick Valley who had defeated Duggan in last year's championship game. They're the 13 seed. They were in the state championship last year. Ended up falling to New Mission, who are the reigning champions, who we also see here at the number 7 seed. But I'm really interested with Hoosick. Trevor Moynihan might be like the most volume 3-point shooter I've ever seen. He's a freshman. He has over 400 points this season as a freshman. A lot of those 3-pointers. I remember his older brother, who how long ago now, I couldn't tell you, at East Hampton, his brother at the Curry Hicks Cage, we were talking about when the Western Mass Championships used to be at the Curry Hicks Cage at UMass, he was pulling 3-pointers from the logo. And coach wasn't upset about it. He's like, yeah, that's a good shot for him. So deep shots, the 3-ball, it runs in the Moynihan family. Trevor is holding that torch high. And then, of course, when it comes to older, or I guess veteran leadership, there's Aiden Wicks. He's a junior. He's scored over 300 points this season. So interested in the Hurricanes. They're that 13th seed. It's going to be tough sledding to get back to the state championship, but they've had themselves quite a regular season. And then I see Ware in here as well. Jack Goudreau having a great year for Ware has led them to a top 10 seed. And Palmer as well in this mix, number 12. They are in the round of 32. They're either going to play Holbrook or Cape Cod Tech. Dylan Doherty has had a great year for the Panthers. He's also a pretty good football player for the Panthers as well. Multi-sport athlete. So just a lot of intrigue here. Granby, another Western Mass team, number 3 seed. They're no stranger to success. They've these last few years have had really great seasons. They were a senior-led team last year, I think a little bit younger this year, but that hasn't really seemed to matter too much for them, locking down that number 3 seed. But just a lot of Western Mass, a lot of mix. As you mentioned, Fenway, of course, English at number 5. New Mission, I mentioned, the reigning state champions. They're going to play either Smith Academy or Com Charter of Cambridge in the round of 32. But Before we move on to D4, we do have a pre-recorded interview with my boss and a great person to work with, Meredith Perry, with the Pioneer Valley boys basketball team with Braden Thayer, Kurt Redeker, and the guys. So I'm going to shoot it to Meredith now. Meredith?
Hey everyone, this is Mass Live's Meredith Perry coming with you with a pre-recorded interview from a team that is looking to be one of the top, if not the top contenders in Division 5, Pioneer Valley. I am joined by Braden Thayer, Kurt Redeker, and Alex McClellan. Thank you guys so much for chatting with me.
You're welcome. Yeah, thanks for having us.
Now, the three of you are doing this interview ahead of time because Western Mass plays their championship games on Saturday, and you're the top seed in your class. What are you looking forward to tonight's championship game?
Just being able to hopefully raise another banner for the school, and just the chance for us to win another championship. It's always exciting being able to play in championship games, and we're looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Now, Kurt, we'll go with you. This senior group has been together for a really long time, and you've had a lot of success over the past few years, but this year seems to have been the best so far. What has been working well for this senior group?
We've just, we've grown up playing AAU together, so we just had a really great chemistry, and, this year we've just been putting it together, and it's been working out. And we got, other players doing great at their job, and it's just, just keep it rolling from here on out.
Alex, who are some of those other players that we should keep an eye on during the tournament?
Ben Werner and Jack Glazier.
Cool. What makes them standout players?
They just play their roles and do their job.
Yeah, and whenever any of us are having a bad offensive night or something, they step up, and they're willing to do the little things that really aren't shown in the stat sheet for the grader of the team.
Awesome. I mean, you need to have those players to go 20-0 so far on the season. Were there any games early in the year that you maybe thought that an undefeated regular season was within reach for you guys?
Away at Drury for sure. Yeah, I mean, we didn't really expect to go undefeated. I mean, we're at this point now, which is great, but we just took it one day, one game at a time, and because we didn't really want to get too far ahead of ourselves, just stay in the moment, stay present, and if we are undefeated, then that's great, and we are, which is it's great. Team really stepped up this year.
Kurt, you mentioned that game at Drury. What do you remember about that one?
It's just it's always hard to play at your top every single game, and especially away games, and in that environment we've had history, tough games and losing streak there, so it's just coming out and playing your best at away games like that.
Now, you all made it pretty deep into the tournament last year. Braden, we'll start with you. What did you learn out of last year's tournament, and that you think you'll bring forward to this year?
Just the experience of playing in the highly anticipated and big environment games, like the game against New Mission. They are a great team. There's a lot of people there, and we were right there the whole game until the end. And we have a lot of guys on our team this year that were there last year, and just gaining that experience is great for us this year. Coming into the tournament, we'll probably be 1 seed, 2 seed at worst. And, we're just excited. And when we get to those higher anticipated games, if we get there, we'll be more ready this year.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to have each of you answer this one. We'll start with Alex. Best memory from playing for Pioneer Valley?
I would say going to Applebee's after every game.
Nice. What do you get usually?
Boneless buffalo wings with blue cheese and extra
Nice. Nice. Okay, Braden, how about you?
There's probably a lot I could say, but probably just being around the guys all the time. Especially these two guys. They're two of my closest friends, and we've been playing. Since AAU back in 5th, 6th grade up until now, and even the rest of the team. We're all tight knit. We're all very close outside of basketball, and probably just being around them all the time and being able to compete for championships with them. It's pretty special.
Awesome. And Kurt, what about for you?
Probably winning Western Mass our sophomore years, just because we were like underdogs, we're young, nobody's expecting us to win something like that. We haven't won one in a while for our school, so it's just a great memory for me.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for chatting with me. Good luck at the championship game. Hopefully you're having some celebratory Applebee's afterward, and we'll catch up with you all during the tournament.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
All right, shout out to Meredith. And I wanted to hear what the dog had to say.
Yeah,
I was very interested. But no, it's interesting to see Braden, Alex, and Kurt, like I said, covered that year when they won the Western Mass Championship. All of them were brace-faced, a little bit younger, sophomores. And it's like, all right, now they're seniors and they've been there, they've done that, they've got the battle scars to prove it. So, I mean, it's really go time here for Pioneer Valley earning that top seed.
I think the confidence in that team showed with those faces as there. They had some fun with it, but they're ready to put their game faces on.
All right, so that was Division 5. Thank you again to Meredith. I'm not just thanking her because she's my boss. That was great. Thank you, Meredith. But looking forward to Division 4 now. If we want to turn the page to Division 4 boys basketball, the brackets that we have here. We got Albert D. Holland School of Tech, number 1, formerly known as Burke. And then we've got Bourne at number 2, a program like you mentioned, Pete. Bourne has been so strong, boys and girls, and the boys, they're not falling behind. They're staying there at the number 2 spot. As I look down, Clinton, the Gales of Central Massachusetts, number 3, having themselves quite a year. They've locked down that spot. They're going to play the winner of Sutton and Roxbury Prep Charter in the round of 32. We got some more Central Mass love. If Georgetown, if we want to call that Central Mass, I think we're just about borderline. They're the number 6 seed. They're going to play the winner of Commerce and Bromfield. I'm seeing Gardner at 37, a preliminary round game. They got themselves in. They're going to play Blackstone Millville, the number 28 seed, in a preliminary round game. But there's, as always, a lot here with a school like Albert T. Holland at the top. A program and a school with history, championship history. Bourne, of course, a school with championship history as well. But when it comes to this bracket in particular, Pete, what interests you, do you think?
I like Millbury in the 4th slot, Gage. They've been around a long time in terms of strong teams over the years, so they're a force to be reckoned with. I think Monument Mountain also could make some noise in the tournament as a number 5 seed. I am strong on Bourne. Another neat matchup: Northbridge and David Prouty in Central Mass. Very strong teams. David Prouty goes back a long time with their excellence, in Northbridge, just a great sports town coming up. And then you have South Hadley and Uxbridge, 11 and 22 matchup as well. So it should be interesting. I don't know much about Holland School of Technology, but it sounds like they're pretty well experienced, and they're trying to lock on that number 1 slot and keep it there throughout this tournament.
Yeah, you mentioned David Prouty in that matchup with Northbridge. David Prouty, a program, like you said, has that history, has that pedigree. They were in the state championship not too long ago. And you mentioned Monument Mountain. And what interests me the most about Monument Mountain is, when it comes to Manny Brown, the outside shooting of Manny Brown, he's a 1,000-point scorer. He's got almost 400 points this year. He's got good genetics. His older brother, Dion, was also a star at Monument Mountain, went to Vermont Academy, and is now doing well at Boston College in the ACC. So we got some good genes there for Manny. Again, I remember the last time I saw Manny Brown play, I think he was a freshman. He may have been this tall, and now he's like way up there. So he's been getting the job done and really leading the way out there for the Spartans. They lost to Taconic recently. That's one of their only Western Mass loss. But when you get 2 Berkshire teams playing each other, it doesn't matter who's playing or what the records are. Anything can happen. But that is a good win for Taconic. And you mentioned South Hadley. They got Jack Lowry, 1,000-point scorer, leading the way. I think his season high is 33 points. He knows how to light it up. He's scoring 400-plus this year. I think if he does not lead Western Massachusetts in made free throws, he's got to be pretty close. He knows how to get in the paint, and he knows how to draw those fouls. So really interesting look here in Division 4. If I take a look at when it comes to the rest, I think we mentioned some of those middle seeds. I see Littleton playing Air Shirley, number 15 versus 18. And you did mention that Prouty Northbridge game. That'll be an interesting game at Northbridge, 2 seeds that are pretty close. And then Manchester Essex locked down number 9, and to close out that top 10, it looks like, if the drum continues to roll, if I can find number 10, KIP Academy locked down the number 10 spot. They're going to play either O'Brien or South Shore Tech. So another interesting bracket here with a lot of really good teams, but let's keep it moving if we can here to Division 3. And let's see what fun finds us there. St. Mary's, number 1. We talked to those gentlemen at the top. They're staying busy. Where are we going? Boston Latin for a scrimmage?
Boston Latin, yeah.
So, yeah, they're keeping busy. They got that number 1 seed. Norwell at number 2. As we go down, I mentioned Taconic, who just had that win recently against Monument Mountain. They're number 6 in Division 3, so a well-earned 3 seed for the Thunder out in the Berkshires. And speaking of, when there's Boston Latin Academy playing Charlestown, that'll be an interesting, Boston City matchup between those two, or Metro matchup. And then I see Greater Lawrence Tech at 5, Shawsheen Valley Tech at 4, Watertown locks down that 9 spot, and then Hanover gets that number 10 spot. But what are you seeing, Pete? What is interesting you just on first look here?
Well, you look at St. Mary's, of course, with that great record, 21-1. They did lose their last game of the season. I think it was to Linvoque
Tech. Yep.
Yeah, but other than that, just flawless and a high-scoring team. St. Mary's, I think they had 80 points 3 times this season. They were in the 70s 8 times.
Wow.
And so they also had a big win over St. John's Prep, I believe. So they're really a powerhouse at number 1. Shawsheen Valley Tech, if they come out of that bracket, they'll be facing Greater Lawrence. That should be a great matchup there. The other side, Newburyport up in the North Shore. Strong team at number 3. They'll play the winner of Boston Latin Charlestown, which will be a great matchup. So you got to look at all around some good matchups. Linfield Wilmington, a 15-18 matchup. Lynn Classical Pittsfield, you mentioned Pittsfield, 16-17 matchup. So some good games on tap for Division 3, and you have to hand it to St. Mary's. You look at them being they're the favorite here going in, and also the girls doing well as well.
Absolutely, and mentioning the Generals, obviously on the girls' side of things, have had a phenomenal year, like Kenny mentioned earlier. But on the boys' side, they're a program in Western Mass that have really ascended these last few years. They had a phenomenal year last year with a great group of senior guys that have seemingly graduated, but the Generals, they weren't gonna rebuild, they were gonna reload, and that's why they're here in the mix in Division 3. So really good crop of teams that we have here. Even going down, I mentioned, or I haven't mentioned, Ludlow at number 43. They got in above 500 based off that and their power ranking. They had a really good season. I believe it was the last year or the year before, won their league for the first time ever. I think it was last year or the year before that. So they're a team that is on the come up with Coach Zimmer leading the way over there. So that'll be interesting to see how things go for them against Apponequet in their preliminary round. And the winner of that will play Swampscott in the round of 32. But let's keep the good times rolling here, Pete, as we look at Division 2. Where it's getting even more fun now as we move forward. Malden Catholic locked down the top seed. Who would have thought? We would have, because Malden Catholic, with the year that they had, winning the Catholic Conference for the second year in a row, I think that is. So much deserved top seed for the Lancers. And then we got Mansfield at number 2. I see interesting matchup. The Longmeadow Lancers at number 17 playing number 16 Milford in a round of 32 game. That'll be an interesting one to keep an eye on. Another game, Holyoke. I'm seeing Holyoke locking down that number 13 seed, playing number 20 Wakefield. Holyoke is really interesting to me because these last few years, the guards that they've had some of the better guards I've seen come out of Western Massachusetts in the last half decade or so. There's Jael Cabrera a couple years ago, who was a Western Mass player of the year, and then his brother as well, now playing for the Purple Knights. They had a kid, Sean Rivera, last year, and now they have Calvin Godbolt leading the way. They just seem to always have these guards. Holyoke does, and that's what really has kept them in these games against the likes of Pope Francis and Springfield Central when they play one another. I know Holyoke had a unreal game against Pope Francis at the Hoop Hall Classic. I think it was Pope Francis went on to win if I'm not mistaken, in overtime at the Hoop Hall Classic because of a late made three-pointer by Sam Brigham that forced the next overtime period. But Holyoke, I think I was reading a quote from Coach Juan Maldonado, my coworker, Meadow Barrow, who will be joining us soon. She spoke with him, and he said this is one of the better Holyoke teams he's seen in recent memory. So interested to see how that goes. Winner of that game, they'll be playing Wakefield. Winner of that will play Oliver Ames, who's the number 4 seed. And I see Chog at number 7, Minnechaug Regional out of Wilbraham at number 27, locking down a postseason spot. I see my Shepherd Hill Rams at number 30 are playing number 35 Westboro in the preliminary round here in the D2 boys tournament. What are you seeing, Pete? What about you?
Well, a couple of Hockomock League teams could very well surface to the top. Mansfield, perennial power for the Hornets, and Oliver Ames on the other side of the bracket. We also have North Attleboro there. You mentioned Milford. Milford will play Longmeadow, a good team from the West. Milford has I forget what year he's in, but he's a 6'9", 6'10" player, and I've seen him play. He's very talented. He can shoot the three. He can take it out deep, go inside, does a lot of damage down low. So that would be a great matchup, Milford against Longmeadow. Milford has lost a few games, but still they're very potent on that. And the Leominster Agawam should be a good matchup as well. And on the fringes, you have South High, big Worcester school against Grafton, who's been around a little bit as well. So some good preliminary rounds, and then it comes down to the nitty-gritty, and you look for a team like Mansfield and Pope Francis. We mentioned them. They should be very strong into this tournament.
Yeah, when it comes to Pope Francis, that's a team I remember. Must be 5 or 6 years ago now, I went to a Pope Francis boys basketball game, and that team finished the season with maybe 2 wins.
Yeah.
Maybe 2, maybe have had 1. And it was end of the regular season, and I went and covered them, and there was a young Ryan Vitavelli, or it must have been Cam Vitavelli at that time, who was a freshman or maybe just coming up and joining the program. And since then, Pope Francis, the Cardinals, have just sort of transformed into one of the best teams in Western Mass, dare I say, potentially the best team in all the city of Springfield, really. I mean, really up there with Springfield Central. Just a lot of great teams in the Valley this year, and Cam Vitavelli has now gone on. He's playing at Worcester State, but his younger brother, Ryan, he's sort of carrying the torch. He's a 1,000-point scorer. Yeah. He's going to go on and play in college as well. They got that addition of Sam Brigham, who was at St. Mary's in Westfield last year. And at St. Mary's, he was the leading scorer in all of Western Massachusetts. He was regularly dropping 30 points a game. And I was really interested to see, with Brigham coming into the fold with Ryan Vitavelli this year, of how is that going to work? I mean, obviously Ryan, he's an unselfish player, but he can score it when he needs to. Yeah. But they seem to have had no problems working back and forth with one another. Like I mentioned, Brigham took that late shot against Holyoke to force the next period. So they seem to have figured things out pretty well. The Cardinals have. They're going to play either Shepherd Hill or Westboro in the round of 32. And I think I see, before we flip it to D1, I think I see Agawam in here as well. Agawam being led by Coach Tim Sheehan, who was the head coach at Granby for so long, but he's been back at his alma mater for the last few years at Agawam, leading that program. And you have a kid like Elijah Maldonado, who's a 1,000-point scorer, great point guard, two-way player. He's a big reason why they are here now. So another great field here in Division 2, but do I know my French? The Piece de Resistance? I don't know. How do they say it? We're going to finish it up here with Division 1. If I can get through all my paper clips. Here we go, Pete. There they are, Franklin at number 1. Are we shocked? No, not really, right?
Well, I was a little surprised because they did have an end-of-the-season loss, a very tough loss to Xaverian, which is kind of in the middle of the pack. Xaverian, a good pedigree as well. Xaverian number 19. I thought maybe it would bring the Panthers down a little bit. No, they retained that number 1 slot. Coach C.J. Neely has done a great job, and you heard Kyle Grabowski talk about the Franklin players. Besides Caden Sullivan, you look at Justice Samuels, a 6'4" junior. He's had some thrilling blocks. That's his expertise, blocking the shots. So, and plus, they went to the finals last year. and they had a chance against North. They couldn't beat that press. So I think Coach C.J. Neely has made up his mind. He's going to defend those hard-nosed, pressuring defenses, and we'll see if they can take it for the Panthers. Number 2 seed also in the Attleboro Big Blue, and so they'll be. I'm sorry, the Red Rocketeers. So they'll be in the number 2 seed. Very strong team. Central Catholic holds the 4, and Newton North holds the 3 seed. So, those are some good matchups. Springfield Central, hanging out there as a 7, but you know what they can do. So they're a force. They'll be playing the winner of Barnstable Peabody Veterans. So that's a strong team there. Bridgewater Raynham, always strong. BR, just a great team. They'll have a tough foe in Methuen at 820, but it's an 825 seed. Central Catholic will get the draw against King Philip Regional and Needham. I saw KP play. Very strong team as well.
Awesome. I mean, I'm just absorbing this D1 field. There's just so many different angles we can hit it from. You mentioned Springfield Central, number 7, and like I mentioned, my coworker Mike O'Barrow will get into Springfield Central a little bit more. I know Unique Kennard has been having quite a year, sort of being one of the leaders for Springfield Central this year, in addition to Jabari Sifrin. But looking around as it relates to Bay State Conference representation, you mentioned Newton North, which just perennially, that's a tough word, ain't it? They're always strong.
Yeah.
That's the way to say it. They're always strong, Newton North, the Tigers. When you have a kid like Tegan Swint, 1,000-point scorer, and you have a senior leader like Nick Spinelli as well as a two-way player, good things are going to happen. I've seen them a few times this year, and I was talking to Coach Paul Connolly about it and to Tegan and Nick about it, how in the starting 5, they're the 2 seniors, and they got 3 sophomores. So they're in a bit of a situation, or they have been this year, where it's like, okay, let's bring these young guys along and let's hope that they can adapt to their roles pretty quickly. And this is the end result, is a number 3 seed. So things going well for them. But Braintree, the number 11 seed, best year they've had since the early 90s. Since I think it was 93, this is the first time they've been Bay State Conference Herget Division champions for the first time since 92 or 93. And I was shocked. I've never seen more seniors on a team. I think they're all seniors except for 2 players. They have, I think, like 13 seniors. They had a banner where they had a photo shoot for all the seniors, and it was just like, I was like, oh, this is the whole team. I'm like, oh no, these are just the seniors. So all these kids have been playing together for such a long time, really over a decade, really since they could start dribbling the basketball. So Braintree going to be one of those teams when you see them, and you think, oh, all these kids can read each other's minds. These are all kids that really understand each other and how they all play. And then we see Brookline. This is an interesting matchup. Brookline, number 13, against number 20, St. John's. Brookline, I know we talked about it a little bit before the show started. With the Warriors, this is one of the better years they've had in recent years. You got Coach Johnny Williams, who came over from Tech Boston a few years ago. He turned Tech Boston over his tenure, a decade plus, into multiple winning state championship teams. Now he's trying to do that at Brookline. I know before the season started, he took all the players to the gym and pointed up and he said, there's no Brookline boys basketball state championship banner right now. What do we want to do about that? So this, and he's always said it takes 4 or 5 years to turn around a program. And I think they're in year 3 right now with him as the head coach. And he told me, he's like, we might be a little bit ahead of schedule. So you might say, like, oh, we got to wait. Well, maybe a couple. It's like, no, when your moment comes, your moment comes. And so this, I think Brookline might be thinking this could be their moment. They got that game against St. John's, who I saw earlier this season, who's really strong in the Catholic Conference. It's not easy sledding in the Catholic Conference, but St. John's has been strong with its lineup that it's had. If I take another look around, it's just what I guess a field we have here. I see Putnam at number 31, another Springfield school, taking on number 34, Durfee, in the preliminary round. I see BC High down at number 27. You might not be used to seeing BC High down there. Obviously won a state championship a few years ago. A few years ago, they went undefeated, won the D1 state championship. But I appreciate, or I do like, the 1-2 punch of Brown and Sustache that they have, of Julian, Juju's his nickname. I've seen them a few times. That's a really good pick and roll. They can both shoot from the outside. Brown is really good down low. So that's an interesting matchup with them against Everett, and the winner of that preliminary round game will play Andover in the round of 32. But I've seen a lot of Eastern Mass, but I do want to continue to show some love here to Western Mass as well. I know we've talked about Divisions 5 through 1, and just as Kenny is the person to go to for Western Mass girls basketball, Meadow Barrow is the person to go to for Western Mass boys basketball. Meadow, are you here with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Hello, Meadow. Yes, I can. You sound great.
Hi,
Thanks
Gabe.
so much. Thank you so much for coming in, Meadow.
Thank you for having me.
We had Kenny on earlier to talk about some Western Mass girls basketball, but if we're going to be talking Western Mass boys basketball, we got to get Meadow in the building. So happy to have you here. When it comes to Western Mass, when it comes to Divisions 5 through 1, 1 through 5, you think about Western Mass, you think Springfield Central, you think Holyoke, you think Pope, you think Putnam. Maybe Longmeadow a little bit, and they might find themselves in a position where they can maybe make a splash here in the postseason. But you've seen a lot of these teams, especially the ones that I've mentioned. So I do want to start, just as we did with Kenny, with Springfield Central. I know Unique Kennard has had himself a little bit of a year. I know Calvin Godbolt is now at Holyoke, so then there was a little bit of an opening there, and Kennard has really sort of done his thing with the role that's been given to him. But when it comes to Springfield Central this year, and looking at the Golden Eagles, locking down that number 7 seed, what's your perspective on Springfield Central? What has made them good in your mind this year, do you think?
Yeah, Gage, I really think that's really important to mention that Springfield Central's all of their losses this season have been really close, with defeats to top teams that you just mentioned, like Holyoke, Pope Francis, Putnam. And then they had that loss to Louisiana's Peabody Magnet at the Hoop Hall, which I was at. But all of those losses also came within a 5-point margin. So I just feel like, that kind of just shows their ability to compete with, some of the best, and, their adaptability to different styles of play as well kind of makes them a tough opponent going into the state tournament. But they've also faced strong out of state competition as well, like Bloomfield here recently, who's a top 10 team in Connecticut, and Peabody, which I just mentioned, who, they have a Hall of Fame coach, Charles Smith, who was inducted into this past October. But, they lost by just 2 points in a game that kind of went down to the wire. So, this team is just very resilient, and they just have a really good ability to compete at a high level. They're led by Unique Kennard, like you just mentioned. He's averaging around 14 points per game, and he's really their key 3-point shooter. But, I just feel kind of with a coaching staff that just kind of knows how to adjust and get the most out of their players. I think that Central is just very well prepared and kind of tough to break down. I kind of have no doubt that they'll be ready to play either Barnstable or Peabody veterans in the round of 32 coming up.
Got you. And going up the street in Springfield to Pope Francis, I'm interested, I guess, in your perspective. I was able to talk just about him a little bit earlier. Ryan Vitavelli, who's sort of just been a staple of Pope Francis boys basketball these last few years, really since he was a freshman or a sophomore. I know he leads the way. Bring in Brigham into the mix, and they haven't really skipped a beat. When it comes to Pope Francis, what's your perspective on Pope Francis in that Division II field, and why do you feel like they have been successful in sort of holding that torch high in D2 in Western Mass, do you think?
Yeah, so Pope Francis, they're obviously the number 1 team in our top 20 in the last installment that we did. But, they're no strangers to the state tournament. They've actually made it there every year for the past 3 seasons, though they've, yet to make it past the round of 16. But I think the last time that Pope Francis took home a state championship was back in 2002, and I was exactly 1 year old. But, I feel like this year, they seem, more poised than ever to kind of make a serious run at a title. I've actually gotten the chance to watch them play, I think twice this year already. And, it's just very clear that, they can excel at both ends of the court with a defense that can really shut down, top scorers. And, they have a deep roster too. They don't just rely on 1 or 2 players. Like you mentioned, Ryan Vitavelli, who's a Super 7, and also Sam Brigham, who's a junior. That's a very good dynamic duo. But, they also have a lot of good juniors as well, other juniors as well. They have Sam Mayfield and Jackson Maurer, who are also key contributors on the court. But I just feel like Pope Francis just looks like a much more complete team this year. year, and I feel like that's just going to make them very dangerous.
Right, it's going to be interesting to see with Pope Francis. Do they get potentially a boys' state championship in basketball and hockey? Maybe the two teams, they'll be going back and forth. But Meadow, I'm also interested in your perspective a little bit on another team I mentioned earlier, Holyoke, a team you're familiar with. You just wrote a great feature story about point guard Calvin Godbolt, who we mentioned. So it's a team you've seen a few times. That's a program where I don't know what they have out back, if they're just sort of producing guards. I don't know where they get them. It's Holyoke just is known for these last few years of producing players that really know how to play out of the backcourt. And of course, Godbolt being one of them, Cabrera being another. I know you've talked to Coach Juan Maldonado recently and during this season. What are you seeing with Holyoke? Is it fair to say, that backcourt is really powering things? Is it more to it than that? What's your perspective on the Purple Knights?
Yeah, like you said a little bit earlier, I did have, the chance to speak with Juan Maldonado, and he did share with me that, he's, even before he was a head coach, he's been following Holyoke basketball for a super long time, and he told me that, this is definitely one of the best seasons the program has had in a very long time, which I feel like, speaks volumes about, the talent and the hard work that they've kind of put in all season. But, they've really been like having a standout year with, key players kind of stepping up, when it counts. And I just feel like, that just from players that I've talked to throughout the season and throughout the games that I've been to, they always tell me that the team chemistry has just been exceptional. It's a lot different as compared to other years, especially with Calvin Godbolt coming in. So I just feel like, the success that they've had has just kind of built a strong sense of confidence within the team, and has just kind of also raised expectations for this team as well. So players like Aiden Cabrera, like you mentioned as well, and Jordan King and Calvin, they're all capable of, making an impact in any game. So, those are definitely players to definitely keep an eye out during the state tournament.
Got you. Well, Holyoke, I think they made it at least to the Elite Eight or just about last year. So is this the year that they can take that next step, or even the step after that and the one after that? I guess we'll soon find out here. We'll know within the next month here. We're going to have 10 state champions between boys and girls basketball. It's going to be fun to watch, and I know Meadow is going to be all over it over in her area. So thank you so much, Meadow, for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Gage.
All right, that was Meadow Barrow, my partner in crime out in Western Massachusetts at Mass Live, giving us the skinny on some of the Western Mass teams. It's going to be a fun one, Pete, this year.
It should be tremendous, Gage. You have 4 undefeated teams coming into the tournament. One will have 1 loss because Lennox, I believe, is playing Renaissance in action today. We mentioned almost 5,000 to 6,000 kids participating in this tournament. Is it going to be a bubble team? Is it going to be some of those strong number 1 seeds rise to the top? It'll be Eastern Mass, Western Mass, Central Mass. Who's going to kind of rise to the top? It's all about to unfold. Couldn't ask for a better time of year than almost March Madness.
Yeah, with all those student athletes, Franklin TV is going to have you guys covered, everybody covered when it comes to coverage of their teams. Us at Mass Live, we're going to have you covered with teams from the Bay State Conference, Catholic Conference, all of Western Massachusetts. We're going to have you coverage from every single state championship game, all 10 divisions at the end of the postseason. So stay tuned to masslive.com this entire next month. And don't forget, when it comes to getting your tickets for these state tournament games, it's GoFan. Through GoFan, you got to get your tickets. If you need more information, go to MIAA.net. I said it on the hockey broadcast. Don't be showing up being, I don't have my QR code, what's going on? Because I'm trying to get in the game too. So I'm trying to get through. I don't want the line held up. Have it on your phone. Have it ready to go. It's GoFan. If you need more information, you go to MIAA.net to get more ticket info. But Pete, this has been great. Thank you so much to Franklin TV. Thank you so much to Dr. Baldwin for his introductions on these last 2 shows. And it's going to be an exciting next month. Hopefully we all see you on the court at the rink soon. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody.